Welcome to the Crush It in Sales podcast. I'm your host, Melinda Van Fleet. This podcast focuses on the intersection of sales, leadership, and personal development. Now let's get ready to dig in and crush it. Hi, everyone. Welcome. This week, I have special guest, MeiLani Hock. She is an award-winning real estate investor. She is also a coach. She has courses on Airbnb and also owns several Airbnbs along with her husband. She is a speaker and she is the mother of 5 beautiful children. And when her son AJ had cancer, was diagnosed with cancer back when he was 2 years old, she really decided to take charge of her life and make a difference out there. So she's also a speaker and shares her journeys and stories with others so she can inspire them to move forward and realize, why not me? So I love that. I was on her podcast, the Why Not Me Academy, back on May 1st, and I just loved chatting with her. So I thought it would be really fun to have her on the Crush It in Sales podcast so she could share her tips and tools and stories with all of you as well. So I really hope you love this podcast. I will put all her information in the show notes, so feel free to link in or connect with MeiLani. And as always, if you like this podcast, I appreciate if you share with a friend, family member, or coworker, and rate and review on Apple. Thank you for listening. Hi, MeiLani. How are you today?
I'm great. Thanks so much for having me on.
Oh, I'm so glad you could be on. This is awesome. Welcome to the Crush It in Sales podcast. And just for anyone listening, I was on MeiLani's podcast, the Why Not Me Academy, just like a couple weeks ago, maybe.
Yeah.
So I'll refer to that in my show notes. I always love to cross-pollinate, and for people that are interested in podcasts, for them to listen to some others is always fun too. So welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah. Why don't you share your background and your story with the audience?
Yeah, definitely. So let's see, my background. So the good stuff, I guess, that I think applies and kind of like you talked about in my podcast, Why Not Me Academy. I think there's a lot of cross referencing, like you said, because it is similar stuff. But like for me, I have 5 kids. My oldest is 10 years old. But back when I had just had my 4th child. I was working a job in sales, actually, and my husband was working in sales. And I got to the point that I started to think about, like, is this really the life we wanted? For my husband, he would leave early in the morning, get back late at night. I was just working 30 hours a week because I had just had my 4th baby, so about 6 weeks old. And it was about this time of like, oh my gosh, is this what life is all about? When my 3rd child was diagnosed with brain cancer on his 2nd birthday. And it gave us like this huge wake up call where those thoughts that were kind of in the back of my head of, is this really what life is? Like, just like trying to work my life away and like having beautiful babies, but like always stressed when I was around, like, I don't know. I was just exhausted and just tired. And this cancer was the wake up call that I felt like I needed. And I remember talking to my husband after we had been doing radiation and stuff for a few months. And I remember just crying at the breakfast table saying, I just can't sit around and wait for him to die anymore, because I felt like I was like losing control of everything. I couldn't even control my son's health, and doctors were just taking him away to try different treatments. And my job actually let me go so I could focus on family. But at the same time, I also needed the money to help pay for the tests and the radiation and everything. So it was just like a crazy, crazy time for our family. And we often had people saying to us, do you just sit there and think, why me? Why us? Like, why our family?
Wow.
And to be honest, there have been a lot of times in my life that I have had those why me moments, but cancer wasn't one of those at this time. And maybe it's because we're a very faith-based family. And I think it was because there were so many prayers lifting us up from people all over the world, actually, that were following our story, because of some other crazy things that were going along with it, that I really felt lifted up. But it almost like gave me the strength to feel like, instead of saying why me, we had this attitude of why not me? Why not me? Because this challenge, this crazy trial, we're going to turn this into a triumph. We're going to turn this is going to make us the people that we need to be more successful in life, to be better humans all around. It brought our family closer together. And so that was kind of the background behind the Why Not Me podcast, Why Not Me Academy as a whole, is to get people to stop talking about their dreams and actually start doing something about it. Because after that conversation at the breakfast table, I talked to my husband about how we had always talked about like being these entrepreneurs and flipping houses and being a stock trader, like a bunch of things that we had talked about, but we had always been like, no, we needed to stay in a stable job, you know? And so this gave us an opportunity of, okay, what do we really want to be doing with our lives so that we can take advantage of every minute we have left with AJ. His name's AJ. And we have been so blessed because it's been almost 6 years now since AJ's diagnosis, and he is alive and well and amazing and funny, and he wants to be a stand-up comedian when he grows up. Like, he's awesome. So he's again, it happened when he was 2, and so he's almost 7. Actually, he's almost 8 now. Holy cow. So yeah, he's almost 8. And so anyways, that gave us the wake-up call of what do we really want to be doing with our lives. And so that's where the why not me mentality and mindset comes from, to figure out what it is that you want in life and actually create a path towards those things. And so when Linda was on our show, she was talking about how she like always wanted to live where there were palm trees. And I loved that. So, and she did it. So it was a great fit.
Yeah, no, it is really funny how it's parallel, but obviously different with your son. But yeah, it's pretty amazing. And I do always love to hear other people's stories too, because the more people that share these stories like this, you just really hope you inspire someone else that's sitting there and maybe miserable in their job or something else, that they're like, yeah, I can do it too. So that's awesome.
Yeah, well, and I guess I should actually get what we actually did. So about 3 months later, I opened up. My husband stayed in his sales job just so like we could still have some, stable income. But I started flipping houses and became a real estate investor. And within 2 years, I was winning awards, and we were flipping anywhere from 12 to 17 houses a year, and really, really loved it for a while. I also started doing Airbnbs, and I became a landlord, and we had a bunch of different properties so that we could have different streams of income coming in, right? I often compare it to, have you ever seen those videos on like plate spinning plates, where they have those long sticks and they try to start spinning one plate and they get it going, and then they start the next one, and then they start the next one, and then they go back and spin the first one. Well, that's kind of our goal with the Why Not Me Academy, is to help you to start spinning those plates, which are different streams of income that can help so that when you're ready and you want to leave corporate America, or if you love corporate America, but you also want to have that extra side income, that's what I'm passionate about, is helping people to get those plates running. So I felt like I'd gotten my house flipping plate up and running, and I had a team running that. And then I started doing new construction, and that plate started spinning. And then Airbnbs were an awesome plate to get going. And so I actually, now I coach people as well on how to get into Airbnb hosting using other people's properties. You can definitely do it. We use it with some of our own properties, but we also do it using other people's properties. And so I have an online course on that and stuff. So, but it was about the time, this was a few years after cancer, that I had almost the second wake up call of I got into 2 different lawsuits with 2 different contractors. There were 2 drive-by shootings on a couple of our properties.
Oh,
We had two of our properties. It always comes in twos. I don't know. I'm just lucky that way, I guess. But two of our properties completely flooded. The downstairs $500,000 homes that were brand new. And so just a bunch of different things. And I started to burn out. I was done with flipping houses. I was so burnt out. And I had been doing it for about 4 years at this point. And I was like, I felt like that plate was starting to fall, and it was like trying to choose if I wanted to put it back up or not. And I decided that for me, I really wanted to focus on my Airbnb plate at that time. And so we scaled up to about 12, 15 Airbnbs. And we had enough income coming from that actually my husband was able to leave corporate America to come and run that. And then I got to go choose my new plate to start spinning. And so really focusing on the coaching. And then I've become like a corporate trainer and a keynote speaker, and I run my podcast. So anyways, I love helping people recognize what's next. What's the next, how can you start a new stream of income so that eventually, you have that freedom to choose how you want to work and choose where and when and for who you want to work, but definitely getting those different streams of income in place. And, also I like being a mom too. So I want to have time for those kind of things.
No, that's great. When someone's starting out in a business, like how would you advise them? Like what would be some tips, maybe 3 tips to get going with, and just relate it back to sales. So if you're thinking about it from a sales perspective, and it can be either flipping houses or the Airbnb, like how would you advise them? What would be some tips?
Yeah, great question. So I am a huge, I guess, time management nerd, or I like to call it living intentionally. So the 3 biggest tips I would give to anyone in sales, but especially in sales, but any business, but especially in sales, because you are you have a little bit more freedom in your job in sales, I feel like. And I think that's why I liked sales. It was a nice entryway to being an entrepreneur. That as being sales, I had to build up my funnel. I had to, follow up. I had to be independently able to execute and close deals, right? And so that time management is huge, especially in sales, right? And the 3 tips I would give is, the first one is to take ownership. You can't take control of your life until you take ownership of it, right? So I think that and using that living intentionally mantra of each choice that you make throughout the day is really, you have to take ownership of that. If you woke up and were in a rush, you chose that. Why didn't you set your alarm 15 minutes earlier? Or why did you push the snooze button? Or if you're not getting enough out of your time, what are you doing with your evenings? Are you choosing to watch Netflix? Because I'm not one of those time management gurus that's like, throw your TV out the window. Like, heck no. I love watching This Is Us. Like, there are shows that I love to just kind of at the end of a day, like breathe and just watch a good show and then go to bed. Like I'm not saying get rid of your TV. I'm just saying choose to watch TV. Take ownership of, yes, I am setting aside this time for me time. And this is what I'm choosing. I'm living intentionally. I'm choosing everything I do. And you can take this, to what you eat, to if you exercised or not. Don't get me wrong. There are going to be, fires that come up along the way. But if you choose to live intentionally and choose what you're going to do and time block and be effective with your time, then you'll be like, as soon as you take ownership of, I'm choosing to do this, then you get to live in those moments better. Like, I choose to have dinner every single night. I will never, ever, ever, I tried to never, ever, ever book anything from 5 to 7, because that is family dinner time. That is family dinner time. If you want me to speak, when I travel to speak, obviously that's a different case, right? But when I'm in town from 5 to 7, that is family dinner time. I want to live intentionally in that moment and choose that I am not doing anything else. My best working hours are in the morning. So I don't schedule doctor's appointments. I don't schedule anything from 9:30 till 1 usually. That is my time that is sacred to me. I don't answer the phone. I don't check emails. I get so much done during those hours that I knock it out. So anyways, so that's my first tip, is to live intentionally and take ownership of your time. Are you choosing to be distracted, or are you choosing Are you reacting or are you acting on life? You know what I'm saying? I could keep going on that one for like a full 5 hours or something. But that's my first one. My second one is to plan the day before. And when I say the day before, for me personally, I live by a very magical thing that I like to call a Post-it note. And that might sound crazy, but I live by my Post-it note because every night before I go to bed on my Post-it note, I put my 3 to 5 biggest things that I need to do the next day. And if I knock all those out, great, I'll bring up another Post-it note. But at the end of each day, I will evaluate if I got the things done on my Post-it note. Now, don't go getting I think those long lists that people put up on their fridge are terrible. Those are meant to be shopping lists. Those are not to-do lists. Do not use those to make a to-do list. You need a standard size Post-it note. And if you're listening, I challenge you to do this for 1 week and see if you see a difference. But the night before you go to bed, write down the 3 to 5 biggest things you have to get done the next day. So when you wake up the next day, you wake up not I don't know, for me, I wake up kind of in a grog, what's going on? What am I doing today? So instead of taking that half hour or 45 minutes to get going in the day, you are ready. You know what your day is. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And sorry, just 1 second, Melinda. I have a visitor.
Okay.
Okay, so on the Post-it note, you write your 3 to 5 most important things to do, and then you get to celebrate it. But if you have that list and you put 7, 10, 12 things on there, your brain cannot function. And if you wake up and you have that list ready to tell you exactly what your biggest things are to do so you can knock those out, then you set the tone for the rest of the day that it will be successful. Okay. So for sales, especially, you're going to think about who are my 3 people that I need to contact tomorrow. And for me, and we'll also talk about sales in the way of, I definitely have a long weekly list of things that I'm going to get done. And I have a long quarterly list that I'm going to get done. I have 25 people that are my most influential contacts that I contact once a quarter. And so then I divide those out into my weekly contacts. And then on my daily, my little Post-it notes, I know who my contacts are for the next day. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I live by my Post-it note. So that's my second one. And then my third one would be to wake up a little bit earlier than you have to. And that actually comes from being a mom. Okay. Is that if you're waking up to your kids waking you up, you've got to realize that you chose that. You chose to be woken up by humans needing something, which I love. I love that. But I wake up at least an hour before I have to, so I can get things done. And then as soon as they start waking up, I can pay attention to them and not just be reacting to what people need, but acting. You know what I mean? Choosing to do that. So when I first started, though, I remember I was going to my favorite workout class. It starts at 5:45 in the morning, but I was like, heck no. I am not one of those people that wants to set my alarm with anything lower than a 6, right? Those are crazy people. And so I would set my alarm for 6 and I would roll in for the last half of this workout class. And the teacher would always tease me, as soon as I rolled in and over the microphone and be like, she's here. It must be, 6:20 or whatever. Because I just could not do it. And then one of my mentors challenged me and he said, just set your alarm 15 minutes earlier. I was like, no, I can't do it. I can't do it. But Melinda, as soon as I started doing it, I became addicted to it. And I swear, the minutes of the day before my kids wake up, they are actually 120 seconds. I feel like they're so much longer. Those minutes before I'm needed and before the world needs me, those minutes are so much longer if you utilize them well. So It's quiet in the house. Yeah. So sometimes I go work out. Sometimes I get so much done in that hour before anyone's awake. And then by noon, I'm kind of like, oh my gosh, I get so much done. Awesome. Let me go and play with my kids. Awesome. Let me knock out my next assignment or whatever it is. So those are my huge, 3 big tips that if you're trying to shake up your schedule and feeling in a funk, I highly recommend you take this challenge of take ownership of your time to realize You are choosing to live intentionally. However you're choosing, you're doing that. In fact, sorry, another tangent on living intentionally. Like I'm just going to say it's my mother-in-law. Okay. I don't think she's going to listen to this, but I love this woman so much. And she is always talking about how busy she is. And we talk about the things that she's that's making her to be busy. I'm like, you chose every single one of those things. Mm-hmm. Why are you saying yes to all those things? Like you're choosing the chaos in your life. So anyways, I kind of geek out. I totally geek out on living intentionally and taking ownership so that you can take control of your life. But living intentionally, using a Post-it note or whatever it is that I highly recommend the Post-it note, but whatever it is for you, but plan the night before you go to bed. And then to wake up early to have a little you time so that you can get control of your day before life starts throwing fires at you.
Yeah, no, those are all great. And you probably never saw I've posted before about, I use Post-it notes. Every day is a different color. So that I had no
idea, Linda, we're Post-it note geeks together. I love it, but keep talking.
Yeah. No worries. So every day is a different color. And I think I'm looking at the size. What is that? Like 5 by 7 or whatever. And I'll be honest, I put more things on there than you do, but I don't have 5 children. So we'll just lay that there, but I do put more things on there. And so I live and die by the Post-it notes. And I am one of those totally freak people that get up like at an insanely early hour in the morning. So but what I also realized too, is that whole 15 minutes, we actually set our clock 15 minutes fast. So I've always done that. So in my mind, when the alarm goes off at 4, it's really 3:45, and that 15 minutes is just so helpful, for whatever. So, because when I travel, I have to leave super early, and then when my husband has charters, we have to get up super early. So we have different schedules than obviously you do. But
no, I totally agree. In fact, just because you talked about the alarm in particular, this is another thing that I kind of geek out about, is that you are setting the tone for the day. And so what do you want those first morning hours to look like? And for me, an alarm is something so basic, but I also challenge you to make sure that sound is something that you want to wake up to. If you still have the default setting on your phone for your alarm, that's crazy. You need to set it to something that like you wake up to and don't like, like that's a terrible noise. Like, why would you want to be awoken like that? Like change your alarm clock, change it to something that makes you want to get out of the bed. And that like, I don't know, one time I even tried doing like a recording of like Tony Robbins, that's what woke me up, or, but for now I have like just this like jingle that sounds like little fairies are like lifting me up, or, whatever it is, but something. Do not wake up to, like that's a terrible noise, and it will start your day off on a bad note. And so just live intentionally every single minute of your mornings, because that will guide the rest of the day. And like Melinda said, like, if that's changing your clocks, if that's putting your alarm clock on the other side of the bed so you don't push the snooze button, like I've seen all these tricks, and that's great. For me, it's just right next to me, and it's got to be a noise that I'm excited to wake up to. It's got to be a song that I like. It's got to be something. So anyway.
Do you find on the alarm comment, because that's really fascinating, I do have that awful beep, beep, beep. So let me back up.
You do?
Yes. And so that's my motivation to get up before it beep, beep, beeps, because I don't want to hear it. So that's how I play. And so, and often, this was going to ask you, often I just wake up naturally before my alarm anyways. So then that is in conjunction, the motivation to get my butt out of bed is I don't want to hear that noise. See where I'm going?
Yes.
So, yeah.
Well, and I think that's cool that like so many of us, I don't know, by human nature, I will say, when you kind of wake up, are you saying, you know what, I'm going to beat my alarm. I'm just going to wake up now because I'm pretty much awake. Or are you saying, oh my gosh, okay, 3 more minutes of sleep. Like, are you trying to force yourself instead of like acknowledging, oh my gosh, my body is awesome and it's ready to wake up and embrace the day. Even though your mind might not be there, like, grab on to your body ready to go for the day, because you have to live intentionally. You are going to choose if you're going to listen to your body and say, you know what, I think I'm good. Like, let's go attack this day. Or you like, no, please. Okay. I have 7 more minutes to just sleep and enjoy every last second. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. Absolutely. So when you were saying about the challenges you had when you were flipping houses, that was kind of crazy, actually. Wow.
Yeah.
How did you get through that? Obviously you moved on, but you still had to deal with those situations.
Yeah, no, definitely. So I call it my ambition hangover. And what I mean by that is I set this goal, like when we were dating, like 20 years ago, 15 to 20 years ago, when my husband and I were dating, we talked about becoming real estate investors someday. We talked about owning a bunch of rental properties. Like these were all things that I had dreamed of in my head. And it's almost like I had seen this big mountain that I just thought, okay, if I can just get to the top of that mountain, everything is going to be beautiful. The view is going to be beautiful. It's going to be awesome. It's going to be great. Well, I finally got to the bottom of the base of the mountain. And I was like, okay, I've got this. Like I've prepared for this for a long time. And I went and I started hiking this mountain, and the views were good. They were great. Like the awards were nice. The money was nice. Things were going great. And as I got close to the top, I felt like all of a sudden there was an avalanche, and all these things that were happening, I felt like were an avalanche. And to the point that at one point, now some real estate investors, this is chump change, but for us, it was a whole lot of money. Okay. So we had leveraged at this point close to $5 million.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
Yeah, right. Like that's a decent chunk of change. Right. And I had 5 kids. And when all of this was going wrong, when, lawsuits were going on, I wasn't allowed to touch certain properties because the lawsuit, they were like frozen in the courts, and they were sitting for 6 months, 8 months. And I was paying interest on $5 million. It got to the point that I was just curled in a ball in my closet and not wanting my kids to see mommy crying again. And even though it had been years of awesomeness, all of a sudden this avalanche it was taking over. And I definitely had some moments in there of why us? Like, I thought we'd done everything the right way. I thought I just so many moments of, okay, why? But why? Even though I had this why not me mantra in the back of our head. One example in particular is that, one of my lenders, who had lent probably about $500,000 with us, I was having nightmares of this family, like literal nightmares, because they had invested their deceased father's 9/11 memorial fund. Okay. So their dad died in 9/11 caused death, and they had invested that memorial fund with me and these houses. And that was like such a huge responsibility. And I was literally having nightmares of this family and just sobbing to them and saying, I'm so sorry. Like it didn't go, like a bunch of crazy things have happened. Like it's just, the list goes on of the craziness, Linda. Like I mentioned a few of them, but it was a crazy time, and it was definitely a life lesson time. Right. And as this avalanche is coming, and I felt like it was starting to melt away. Okay. Well, sorry. I hope you have time. I'm just like,
yeah, no.
Cut me off.
Yeah.
I'm going too loud.
I know nothing about real estate, so this is just fascinating.
Oh, good. Okay. And hopefully, it definitely ties back to sales, hopefully. So at the time, my oldest, who understood the magic of Christmas, it was December when we finally got to put the houses back on the market after the lawsuits. And, December, a great time to sell houses, right? No, it's terrible, right? And so we finally got to put the houses back on the market. And I had asked my oldest son, who knows the magic of Christmas, kind of teasing. I said, I didn't see a letter to Santa from you. What are you asking for this year? And we were walking to the bus stop, and he said, Mom, it's okay. It's not a big deal. I was like, no, serious, honey. What do you want for Christmas? Because in the back of my head, I'm like, I am losing money, thousands of dollars by the day. So I need to know what you want so that I can figure out how on earth I'm going to provide a Christmas, right? And he said, no, Mom, it's okay. It's okay. And finally he came to, Mom, it's just one thing. And I said, okay, well, what is it? And he said, Mom, I just want you to be able to sell one of your houses.
Oh God, I have the chills.
Oh my gosh, Melinda, it killed me. Like, I was like, how did I get to the point that I put my family in this position? Like, he is so young. He's supposed to be enjoying Christmas. And yet instead at night, we're praying, we're fasting as a family together about how we're going to make it through this. And my sweet little son was worried about this for me. And so like, I start crying. Of course, I'm like, have a good day at school. We'll figure that out. Like, oh gosh, it was one of those defining moments of my life.
Wow.
And so a couple weeks goes by and it's Christmas Eve and we're playing sports because, you know, when you birthed a basketball team, you get to play sports on Christmas Eve because we have a whole team. And so Christmas Eve, we were actually playing football this time. And I got a text message and I started crying. And that sweet son came over and said, Mom, is it? And said the name of my contractor because apparently he thought if Mom's crying, it's because of this terrible person that has, you know, ruined the last year of our life, basically. And he's like, is it, you know, and being all tough and ready to go take him on. And I said, no, honey, you got your Christmas wish. We just sold a house.
Oh.
And Melinda, this was on Christmas Eve. Like, that doesn't happen a lot. Like, who goes even to see houses on Christmas Eve, let alone puts offers in on Christmas Eve? And it was it was a Christmas miracle. It was fabulous, right? And I at that moment, he hugged me. He started crying. My other kids came and heard, and we all were dogpiled. And it was a very, very beautiful moment after a lot of hardship over the last 6 months, year, or whatever.
Yeah.
And in that moment, I promised myself that I needed a break from flipping houses, and I was not going to put my family in that position again. And I was not going to leverage that amount of money like that again. And so that is, the long story. If we go back to the Avalanche parable, at that time I had a choice to either keep climbing up to the top of the flipping houses mountain, or go back to the bottom. And I was worried if I went back to the bottom of that mountain, I was worried I was never going to have the confidence and the courage to go back up any mountain ever again, because it had hurt so bad in that avalanche.
Right.
But if you can picture this in your head, I feel like the avalanche, once I started looking around at the options, I realized that the avalanche had created a bridge into a beautiful valley of other mountains to climb. And there's no way I would have known about these other mountains if I wouldn't have climbed and gone through the avalanche. And so that provided me an opportunity to walk across that snowy bridge over to another mountain of really focusing on Airbnbs, which I love. I'm passionate about it. But not just Airbnbs. Once I was on the Airbnb mountain, I could see all these other things of coaching, speaking, getting paid to speak on stages and to do podcasts and all sorts of things. And so anyway, so I look back, and even though that was a terrible, hard time in our life, I'm so grateful for it, because I didn't know those other mountains existed, and I would have never had the courage to walk over to them if I wouldn't have gone through that first one. Right. So yeah, going through those were terrible, but there's things I would change about it maybe, but as a whole, it turned out for the best, and it turned out the way that the Lord wanted it to for me and for our family.
Yeah. How old was your son when all that was?
He was almost 9.
Almost 9. Okay.
Yeah.
So you said your oldest was 10. So I'm like, wow, he's still.
Yeah. He just turned 11. So it was a couple years ago.
Wow. That's amazing. Yeah, no, it's really important, I think, for anyone to think of whatever challenges they have as, a stepping stone to something else and a learning experience. And thank you so much for sharing that story. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So I'm going to ask you a funny question.
Okay.
If you didn't have to sleep and I'm
okay,
and 8 extra hours, what would you do?
If I could what with my hours?
And you had 8 extra hours.
Oh, if I had 8 extra hours.
You didn't have to sleep. What would you do with your time?
Ooh, this is like a personal question. Maybe some people would be like, I'd go out and work harder. Like, no, like that's not the goal in my life. Is not my goal is to work smarter, not harder. Right. So, if I had 8 extra hours, I would write. I love to write. I love to blog. I love to, I just enjoy telling stories. I think the Lord has blessed me with 5 amazing kids, and I learn lessons from them every day that there aren't enough hours in the day to like write them all down and like learn from them, because I think there's so many examples in every day from my kids. Like if you have time for an example, the other day, on one of my podcasts, actually, I was talking to a psychotherapist, and they were talking about the biggest thing that all of us as humans are going to learn from, the biggest lesson we can learn from coronavirus is the ability to process 2 extreme different emotions at the same time. And at first it kind of sat with me, and I didn't know what to do with it. And I was like, okay, yeah, I could see that. I don't know if that's really that big of a deal. But then as I started thinking about it, I realized how that affects everyone so much, meaning that I actually kind of have loved, I hope this doesn't offend anyone, but I've loved the time that came from quarantine and the togetherness in our home. And so I've had that joy that comes from that, but also the stress of what is going to happen to the world? What's going to happen to the economy? What's going to happen to all this? And so that's what she was talking about. Well, that night after I had recorded that podcast, my 5-year-old had like kind of like a really bad sliver that we were getting out of his hand, and he has some anxiety issues that we are trying to figure out and trying to learn how to best let him flourish. And so he had an anxiety attack right as we were getting this sliver out. And after it was done, I was like, okay, I'm going to take this opportunity to teach what I learned today. And I said, Hunter, I think you are feeling a lot of emotions right now. And he said, do you know what emotions are? And he said, no. And I said, feelings. Are you having a lot of different feelings right now? He said, yes. And I said, what are you feeling right now? Let's talk about a few of the different feelings you're having. And I said, what's the first one? And he said, I'm scared. And I said, you're scared even though we got the sliver out? He's like, yeah, I'm scared that it's still going to hurt. And I said, okay, well, what else? Or what other feelings do you have? And he paused for a decent amount of time. And he said, Mom, I think I'm a little proud. And it was this beautiful moment of him like wondering, because he was like almost wondering if he was allowed to be scared and proud at the same time. And I think that happens to all of us, of how many times are we scared, but like we're proud of the baby steps we're making. And I found that was so beautiful that he could recognize that, yeah, he did feel both of those. And that's not bad. That's actually good. And learning how to process both of those at the same time. Anyways, my kids, I feel like I learn things from them all the time. And there's so many lessons that I would love to just write and actually have the time to process each of those lessons at the end of every day. And I try to do it for a little bit, but 8 hours, I could feel the full 8 hours of that, I think.
Yeah. Oh, that's really cool. I love that. And I love that it relates back to your kids. Do you at least keep like a journal where you can just like write like a topside note so you remember?
I do. I definitely do. And then I also use, I have a business Instagram account, but then I also have a personal one. And so I use that to kind of keep track of, and then I have books that are made from my personal Instagram account. But yeah, so I try to, but I mean, serious, I could fill the 8 hours. I feel like every single night with just writing. I just love to write.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I definitely relate to that. It's interesting too about the person you had on your podcast, because I definitely have been on that page with, happy to be home more, happy to help my husband with his business more, but then sadness. And also I would toss in guilt.
Yeah.
Guilt. And then when you think of your son, we all go through it actually all the time. It's not just about COVID. We all might, be, let's say, I'm just gonna make up a goofy example. You had a great day at work and you were happy about that. You sold a lot, but then you go, oh, but, she really needed it. It wasn't me. Right. So, she really needed the product or whatever it was. So you kind of actually often bring yourself down because you might have some guilt or shame around bragging, and you're not really bragging. You're just taking ownership, but still, I think as humans, we do that all too often.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that your son at 5 years old is doing that already too. So
yeah,
fascinating. So thank you for sharing. That's awesome.
Definitely.
So yeah, so how can anyone get hold of you? How can they connect with you?
Yeah, definitely. So I'm on Instagram, MeiLani Hock, MeiLaniHock. But then also check out whynotmeacademy.com or the podcast or the YouTube channel. Why Not Me Academy. It has on there my Airbnb course where I help people get started in that. But also in the next 6 months, we are creating more courses about other ways to capitalize on that why not me attitude and to add that into your life. So you'll see more in courses coming out right now. We just have the Why Not Me Airbnb and Why Not Me Mindset, but others will be coming soon.
Oh, that's great. Very cool. Well, thank you so much. I'm so glad we got to connect again. I'm really appreciative of that and your time and all the goodies you shared. I hope everyone kind of picks up some tips, especially on time management, because that is super important, especially with people getting hopefully back to work, if not now, yes, or soon.
Yes. And I'm glad you said that. So on my website, on whynotmeacademy.com, we have freebies. If you're interested in Airbnb or if you're interested in time management, under the Live Intentionally section, there's freebies on there of a weekly planner and a few other things. So definitely check it out.
Oh, that's awesome. Very cool. And I'll put all this in the show notes, and I hope you all connect with MeiLani. I appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Melinda.